of the visitor process and how the visitor process works in BNI Connect. And there's three different steps to working with visitors in BNI Connect. Now, the first two steps in here have to do with things that happen before the meeting. And then the final step is something that typically happens after the meeting. Now, the first two steps are things that any member and even any visitor can do, whereas the third step is usually done by a visitor host or a secretary treasurer or somebody on the leadership team. Now, this is part of, as I said, a bigger document. If anybody would like a copy of this document, it's a 53-page manual outlining the entire visitor process in BNI Connect and all the different screens and steps. Please do feel free to email me, support@bniconnect.com, and I will be happy to send you a copy of this document. Again, that's support@bniconnect.com, and I'd be happy to send this to you. But let's jump in. Now, the first step in this flow of visitors is inviting visitors. And BNI Connect, as I said, can help you with that part of the process. The way it works in BNI Connect is that we do have an email invitation that we can send to visitors. And the great thing about using this particular invitation is that it's automatically customized to your chapter. Let's take a look at how this works in BNI Connect. So let me jump over to BNI Connect here. And obviously this is the screen that you see when you first log into BNI Connect. So it has your My BNI Business and all of your personal statistics. And this is where we would enter in all of our referrals and thank you for closed business and everything on a weekly basis. But in order to get to some of these other functions, we are going to have to dive in a little bit past the home page here to get to some of the deeper levels. And a lot of people have said over the years it may not be the most intuitive system as when you first look at it, but the way that I remember where to find stuff is that we do need to go into these menus along the top. So you see how we have the home button, then we have network and operations and reports. Most people won't have a tools or admin, but you definitely should have network, operations, and reports. The way I remember where to go is network is always going to be the social media function. So this is where you go and you interact with other people in BNI Connect, so your connections and testimonials, and where you go in to use the discussion groups and things like that. Operations and reports are where you're going to spend the bulk of your time. Operations is really the day-to-day management of your chapter. It is the input section. So operations is input. Reports, on the other hand, is always going to be output. It's always read only. So anytime we want to do something or create something, we're going to go to the operations menu. And that's what we're going to go to in order to create this visitor invitation. So I'm going to go to the operations menu and to the chapter level. By the way, if you are a director consultant that's on the call with us today, you can actually use this invitation for any of the chapters that you help to support. Now, once we get into the operations menu, you'll see these things on the left-hand side. These are the main categories of things that you can do. And on the right-hand side are the other options. Now, on the left, you'll see that we have a number of different things, and depending on your access levels, you may see some or all of these, but everybody should see an option here called Create Email. And this is where we're going to go in order to create our email invitation. Under here, you'll have a couple of different options. The first option is Email My Chapter. Now, by the way, this is a really cool tool. If you do need to get in touch with your chapter, you need to send out an email reminder or something like that to your chapter. Before BNI Connect, I used to have to go to the last email, sent items or last email I received from my group and kind of hit reply all and hope that it went to the right people. Well, now I can get an updated address list anytime I want to just by clicking on Email My Chapter. And of course, I can copy and paste this into my own email program. But the great part is that the list will always be up to date with all of the new members, as well as the people that have left your chapter will no longer be in the list. But anyway, what I wanted to show you in here was this email visitor invitation. And if I click on this, it'll bring up a couple of options. Now, I personally like to use this tool as kind of a second invitation. So usually, you go to a networking event. Let's say you go to a chamber business after hours or a first Friday coffee or something like that, and you end up meeting somebody there that you think would be great to come and visit your particular chapter. So usually we just go and we say, you know, it's great meeting you. Why don't you come and visit my BNI chapter? Yeah, we meet on Thursdays at 7 o'clock in the morning. Hope to see you there. A lot of times we end the conversation there. We all go off on our merry ways. The person that we met goes and does their thing, and then all of a sudden Thursday morning comes around and the alarm goes off at oh God 30, and they say, yeah, you know what? Nobody's really expecting me to be there, and they end up hitting the snooze button a couple of times. This visitor invitation helps to make it a little bit more official. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and just invite a random person. So I'm going to just put in John Smith from Smith Co. and the email address. Now I'm going to put in my own email address here so that I get a copy of this so I can show you guys what it looks like. If you guys would like to do this as well, feel free to go in, fill this out, and send it to your own email address, and it will send you a copy of what this invitation looks like. So I'm going to put, again, my email address in, and then a personal message. Now, when this email gets created, we're going to use our own, BNI branded template. And the personal message is your introduction to this person. So this will really make it sound like it's coming from you. So you want to say something, well, as it says, personal in this message. So I'm going to say, assuming going back to my story, we met this person at a networking event. So it was great meeting you at the chamber event. I would love to introduce you to my referral team. Right? Now I'm going to click send. It's going to take this information and put it in a nice little package, automatically get the location of my chapter and what day and time we meet and all of that stuff, and send that email right out. And I've already received a copy of it. And here is what that email looks like. So it is a nice branded email. As I said, this is a nice BNI graphic. If anybody's familiar with the postcard campaign that BNI has had for a number of years, this is the same graphic that we use for that as well. And then it goes into the email. Dear John, it was great meeting you at the chamber event. I'd love to introduce you to my referral team. So that was my introductory paragraph there. And then it goes into the formatted portion of it, and it puts in automatically the name of my chapter. So I happen to be using the Burr chapter up in my test region in Antarctica. It puts in the location that they meet and the town and the day and the time that they meet. So all of this information, you don't have to go in and look it up. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I got to send this email to the visitor and tell them where we meet and come up with the directions and the map address and all that kind of stuff, this does that for you automatically. It then briefly describes what BNI is. I know that a lot of people have a hard time, when you meet somebody, trying to explain exactly what BNI is and what it does. And this is a nice message that was put together that briefly describes it. Then lets them know that we're looking for somebody in their profession and to please RSVP with you. And if they hit reply to this was generated from BNI Connect, but if they hit reply, it will go to your email address. So that reply will go to you. And that right there is the visitor invitation. Now, I do have a question from Ronnie. Ronnie says, I don't have a create email. Is this a Canadian thing? So if you do not have this create email option, again, that is something that is controlled by your regional office. So for some reason, they may have turned it off at this point in time. What I would recommend doing is please talk with your director consultant or your executive director. They would be able to either turn it on or explain why it's not an option quite yet in your particular region. So does that help, Ronnie? Excellent. So again, for those of you that are having a hard time locating it, make sure you go to Operations and then Chapter and then Create Email, Email Visitor Invitation. All right, and for a couple of questions that I always get asked about this particular function. This does not record this invitation anywhere in the system. So you don't have to worry. We're not collecting a database of all prospects out there or anything like that. It is just a means to help you get out a very simple email invitation to somebody that might be interested in BNI. As such, there's no reports or anything associated with this particular function. As I said, it's just a way to get that invitation out there and really help you with the verbiage of what to say to somebody to invite them to BNI. All right, so that's the visitor invitation. So that's the first part in this process. Now, if we go back to the manual here, the second part of this process is the pre-registration of visitors. And this is really where kind of the power of the visitation process comes in. What this does is it makes the visit official. So up to this point, it's kind of I'd love for you to come to a BNI meeting. This says, at least from the visitor perspective, yes, I am going to be there. I'm sure this has never happened to you in your chapter or your region, but you invite somebody to BNI, maybe you even used the invitation message, and they say they're going to be there, and then they don't show up. And again, a lot of times that's because, again, at dark 30 in the morning, when they go to hit that snooze button, they're thinking, well, nobody's really expecting me at the meeting. It's going to be this big networking event. There's going to be hundreds of people there, and nobody's going to miss me if I don't go. Registering that visitor helps to set up that expectation to show up to that meeting, or at the very least to call and say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make it after all. So this really helps to reduce that whole no call, no show that sometimes happens with visitors. Now there's two different ways that visitors can be registered for an upcoming meeting. Visitors and members actually, visitors can register themselves through the public websites. And there's a number of different places to go to in order for them to do that. We try to make it as easy as possible with different areas that they can register for a meeting. So let's take a look at that real quick. How can a visitor register themselves for an upcoming meeting? So let me go back over to BNI Connect now. Now, BNI Connect is larger than the member portal. There's also hundreds and hundreds of regional websites. Every region, whether you're in Texas or California or where I happen to be in Rhode Island as a member, everybody has a regional website. If you're not sure what your regional website is, you can always click this regional website button in the upper right-hand corner. This will take me to, for example, my region, the BNI RI region, but your region has their own. If you happen to be in Minnesota, BNIMN.com. There's also a United States national website called BNIAmerica.com that has all of the members from around the United States, and other countries have that as well. So let's take a look at how a visitor does. Now for this, I don't want to freak anybody out in any chapter by registering somebody live. So I'm going to go back to my test area here. I happen to have a website for Antarctica called antarcticreferrals.com. And let's say that I'm a visitor out there and I'm thinking about visiting a chapter somewhere in Antarctica. I'm going on vacation, want to go see something, starting a business up there. So I'm going to take a look through the chapters up here in Antarctica, and it looks like we have a Burr chapter. They happen to meet on Wednesdays at 5:30. That is a perfect time for me. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this chapter. And once I get to the chapter, it shows me all of the members that are up there. It looks like we have a whole bunch of members in this chapter. Adam Sandler's in that chapter, and Alfred E. Newman. Looks like some people that I want to meet, Harvey Keitel. So what I'd like to do is to visit this chapter. So I can register to visit this chapter right here through the Visit This Chapter button. And this will just take me to a very simple form. So I can register myself, and you'll notice I can only register myself for future meetings. So because they meet on Wednesday, it's only showing Wednesdays, though I can choose any Wednesday. So let's say I'd like to register myself for next week's meeting. And I'm going to put in John Smith here. Now, as I said, if you have a member, let's say that you're out there on the road and you don't feel like logging into BNI Connect and finding where it is, you can also register a visitor using your public website as well if you need or want to. So he's from Smithco, phone number, email address. Email address is mandatory. And for this one, again, I'm going to use my email address because I really want to show you guys the emails that go along with this. And that's one of the powerful pieces of this. I'm just going to choose something random here, apparel, and they can type in who invited them. And they do have to enter a CAPTCHA code for this because it is on the public internet, so we don't want any robots registering people for chapter meetings. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit. And now this person, John Smith, is registered for the upcoming meeting. And in a second, I should get an email saying, congratulations. So here I have this. It says, hi, John, you are now confirmed to visit the BNI Burr chapter meeting. Lets me know the time and the day and make sure I'm there for 90 minutes and bring lots of business cards. So this now lets me know that somebody is expecting me at the meeting, which is a very important and powerful thing. Now, on top of this notification, as the potential visitor, I'll also get a reminder. So especially if I've registered for a meeting that's 1 or 2 or 3 weeks out, 2 days before that meeting, I will get a reminder saying, please show up to the meeting. Remember that you registered, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not all. The visitor host team, the leadership team, and the director consultant also get a notification that there is a visitor coming. So Alfred E. Newman happens to be on the leadership team there, and this let Alfred know that John Smith is confirmed to visit, and please be prepared to welcome John Smith to that meeting. Now, this is really helpful to leadership teams, especially because you can really do a lot with this information. One of the most important things you could do is do a pre-follow-up with that visitor. By looking at what their category is, what their profession is, you may be able to reach out to that visitor and say, hey, you know what, John Smith, I noticed that you're in the apparel business. Well, we happen to have a wedding planner in the group that is looking for somebody to help with, creating wedding dresses. I'd love to introduce you to her. Look really forward to meeting with you. The more touches you have with somebody before the meeting even happens, the more you can make them feel welcome to be a part of your group, and the better the chance that they'll put an application in. In addition to that, your visitor host team and director consultant, other people can use this information in positive ways as well. For example, you can have a name tag already created for that person so that when they walk in, you have a name tag for them on the desk already. So all things like that are great ways that you can use this to pre-welcome and pre-register that visitor. Now, as I mentioned, that was available through this chapter details page. Now, every chapter also has a website. Please forgive the look of this website. I was using it for some testing demonstrations. But on all of the chapter websites, there is a Visit Chapter button, which you can then use to register a visitor as well. And also on the national sites, on the chapter details page, there is a way to register visitors there as well. So there's multiple links on multiple pages on the public internet that a visitor can register themselves, or even if a member has never logged into BNI Connect, they can register their visitors there as well. Now, I did mention there's also a way that you can register somebody on the inside of BNI Connect as a member. Now, we do have a couple of questions that have popped up. Ronnie has asked, Jeremy, once you send an invitation, is there a place to check to see who you have invited? And Ronnie, unfortunately, no, there's no sent items. There's no tracking of this in any way. It just sends out that quick email. As you can see, it is sent immediately, but there is no follow-up or ability to track those emails in BNI Connect at this time. All right, so hopefully that answers your question. So Ronnie has a suggestion that it would be great to be able to CC yourself on that as well. So I agree, that would be a great thing. All right, so Wayne said that his regional website looked a little different, but he did find it, so excellent. David has a question about visitors in general. He says, can part-time business people attend a meeting? And absolutely, really, anybody can attend a meeting as a visitor. So part-time, full-time, there's, we've had in our region, we've even had, college students that may be going into business attend chapter meetings. Now, there are some people that can't join if there's a conflict in the profession, or if there's, part-time people are discouraged from joining BNI, due to the relationships and the fact that most of us are in full-time businesses, but that doesn't preclude them from visiting a chapter, because every visitor is valuable in their own way. Some people will just be a referral source. Some people may just end up being a customer for people in the room, so they may just buy stuff from other members around the room, even if they never join. So my recommendation is yes, anybody should be able to visit the meeting, though there are some exclusions to actually becoming a member. So does that help, David? Excellent. So let's fast forward again. Let's take a look at how, if you're logged into BNI Connect, you can register a visitor as well from the members only portal. So again, let me click on BNI Connect here and go back to the inside portion, the member only portion of BNI Connect. And the place to go is, again, we're going to go back to that operations menu in order to register visitors. Again, if we want to do some data entry, we're going to operations. So operations, and this is at the chapter level. And the very first option we hear is the Manage Visitors option. Now, in here, because of my access level, if I was, let's say, the vice president or I was the visitor host, I would see all of these options here. Most people that are members in a chapter and you don't have any other roles, you're probably only going to see this third option here, which says register a prospective visitor before a meeting. Now, this form is, except for being on the members only portion of BNI Connect, is pretty much identical to what's out there on the public internet. The only difference between this is really that, again, you can only choose a future date. All the information, the name and the address and the company, all of that's really the same. It's not going to ask you for who invited by, because it does assume that it's you. And there is no CAPTCHA code on the inside. But other than that, this still does the exact same process as registering somebody on one of the regional websites. Now, one of the great things about this is that this really does help the leadership team, especially for planning purposes. I can tell you my own personal chapter here in Rhode Island, we're actually having a Visitors Day on Thursday of this week. And we're making sure that we register all of our visitors through BNI Connect, not only for the reminder and the notifications and all of that, but also to make sure that we can tell our venue, yeah, we're expecting 20 people, so they have breakfast available for all of those people. So you can look at that. Any member should be able to look at the reports of people that are registered for the meeting. So you can do that by going to the reports menu. So let's go and take a look at the reports. And this is a chapter level report. And if we go all the way down to the bottom, we have two different reports. Essentially, they're going to show very similar information, but the visitor registration report is the one that we're going to look for. And this should, by default, is going to show us everybody that is registered for the next week. Now, I can change this date range to be anything that I want to. Let's say I'm a director consultant and I'd like to see all of this month's upcoming visitors. I can do that and plan appropriately. Or if you have a specific visitors day like I do in my chapter, I can specifically look for that day in order to see who's registered for that meeting. And here we can see the prospective visitor registration report. And I can see that John Smith is indeed registered who invited him and what the visit date is. So all of this information is available through this report. If you export this report, you'd also be able to see more information, such as the person's physical address if they happen to have that filled out on their registration as well. Now, just to give you an idea of what this looks like, as I mentioned, we're using this for my personal Visitors Day. So I'm going to switch over to my own personal chapter here in BNI Connect, which happens to be the Wakefield chapter. And we have the visitor registration report. So this is really exciting for me as a member because we can see now how many visitors we have that we're expecting for this week's Visitor Day. And even better, if you happen to be on the leadership team, there's some accountability because we can see who's been inviting those visitors as well. So again, some great information that is available just by pre-registering your visitors. Now, the final part of this process is really a leadership team specific function. So I'm not going to go into that too much today, but just to give you a quick rundown of how that works. Again, if I go back to the operations menu, if you happen to be a visitor host or you happen to be a vice president or a secretary treasurer, this makes your life a little bit easier because, again, I keep reverting back to like a visitor's day. A lot of times you have to go back after the meeting, or especially after a visitor's day, and you have that big long list, the visitor sign-in sheet, and it usually is filled with a whole bunch of chicken scratch, and you got to try to match that up with the business card, with who invited them and everything else, and sometimes the information's there and sometimes it's not. The more that the chapter registers their visitors and the more that the visitors register themselves, it makes your job a whole lot easier in that position of recording visitors. Because all I really need to do now is, instead of entering all the visitors from scratch, I can just go to Manage Registered Visitors and mark attendance. And I can leave this date range open, or I can just look at a certain time period. And I can see all of the people that are registered, and I've done a couple of these webinars recently, so I've registered a number of people. And you can go in, and after the meeting has happened, click on Edit. And all you need to do at that point is to mark them as attended. You'll also have the choice on whether or not to add them to the PALMS report. Reasons why you might not want to add them to the PALMS report: that, as you know, that the person gets credit in the PALMS report for inviting that visitor. If the person's not an eligible visitor, maybe they're a member in another chapter, or maybe it's their second or third or fourth visit, you don't want to keep giving credit in the PALMS report for that, because that will lower your traffic lights. It will lower your conversion ratio as well. And then finally, at the bottom, after you filled out any missing information, you do have the opportunity to choose whether or not the follow-up email goes to the visitor as well. An email goes to them, says, "Thank you so much for coming to our meeting." But there may be cases when you don't want to send that email. Maybe it is their second, third, or fourth visit, or I'm sure this would never happen in your region, but maybe you're 2 or 3 or 4 weeks behind in entering your visitors. It would be a little bit silly looking, "Thanks for visiting our chapter recently," and it was actually a month ago. So you can choose to suppress that follow-up email as well. And that, my friends, is the visitor process in BNI Connect. Now, as I mentioned, this 53-page manual, if you would like a copy of that, all you have to do is email me, support@bniconnect.com, and I will be happy to send this to you. All of the different steps of this process are also available on the support site. So if there's something that you'd like to teach to your chapter and show them how to do this, you're always welcome to check out the support site and check out the help documents there. The easiest way to get to the support site is up here in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see a big white question mark. That question mark will take you to support.bniconnect.com, and here you'll see our list of upcoming webinars. This is also where you can see the recordings. So you'll see the recorded webinar series. You can see this month and last month and the month before, as well as our future webinars. So the entire month of October has been posted, as well as our remaining webinars in September here. And a good referral for me, by the way, is to please let your other chapter members know about these referrals. The next couple of these webinars. The very next couple of webinars are more leadership team oriented and special position oriented. So we're going to be talking about the renewal process. We're going to be talking about if anybody's interested in being a chapter webmaster and updating your chapter website. We're going to be talking about that, as well as some tools and reports for leadership teams and goals for leadership teams, which is very important with the upcoming changeover for a lot of regions on October 1st. But if you scroll down further, you'll see all sorts of chapter training and documentation. So for example, the email a visitor invitation article is here. So if you'd like to send this to your chapter, show them how to invite a visitor through BNI Connect, you can just send them this link so that they can utilize this tool and maybe learn how to do it. This one even has a short 2 to 3 minute video about how to invite a visitor. And of course, you can always find our full complement of videos at youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. It usually takes me about a day or two to upload the copies of the recordings. This one should be up in our YouTube channel very shortly, in a couple of days. If you'd like to be notified when they're uploaded, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. And of course, I would absolutely love it if you gave us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. I think we just hit our 10,000 like mark, so thank you guys, everybody, for that, and we'd love to keep you informed. We do reminders and updates and tips and tricks and all sorts of stuff on our Facebook channel as well. All right, so we're a couple of minutes past the bottom of the hour. As I mentioned, I am happy to stay on these calls until every single question is answered. So please, I'd like to open this up for questions. Feel free to ask about the visitor process or anything else in BNI Connect. I would love to answer those questions now. All right, so let's see. We have 2 questions/comments so far. One is from Annette. Annette says, the 2-day email reminder, I take it that that is automatically sent by the BNI system. Yes, absolutely. The 2-day reminder goes out automatically by the system. Most of them are sent out in the middle of the night, so it's in their inbox waiting for them in the morning. But yes, that should go out 2 days before your chapter meeting. If somebody registers, less than 2 days, so for example, for my Visitors Day on Thursday for my chapter, people, if they're just registering now, they're already beyond the 2-day mark, so they would not be getting a registration. They would get the registration, I'm sorry, not the reminder email. All right, so let's see, we have Wayne just says, great job, I'm the incoming president and the webmaster. So Wayne, make sure that you join us for the webmaster webinar. That one's going to be this Thursday, so just 2 days from now. We're going to be talking about how to do that, and I can go through the whole process of how to update your chapter websites. Same bat time, same bat channel here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. All right, let's see. Shodi says, how many CEUs would this webinar be? If you go back to your home screen, so click on the home button and click on submit a CEU slip here, the 4th option down. Make sure you give yourself 1 credit for a BNI webinar. So give yourself 1 credit, submit that slip, and have 1 CEU for joining us today. Thank you so much. Let's see, Marie from Ontario, Canada says hi and thank you for the lesson, and you are so very welcome, Marie. Ronnie says, I don't have a question, but I have a solution to what she had asked earlier about CCing yourself. And she said, send the visitor invitation to yourself, then resend it to your visitor. That way you have a copy of all your invites. Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. As a matter of fact, to just take this like 1 step a little bit further, again, we're having a Visitors Day this Thursday. This email, because of the way it's worded, it isn't really perfect for a Visitors Day because it's kind of vague about, the day. It pretty much says you can come to our meeting any Thursday at this time. It doesn't say, please come to this meeting on this day. So one thing that we did in our chapter was I actually sent a copy of it to myself. And then what I did was I made a couple of little edits. So here's what I did. I sent it to myself. I made a couple of edits. Insert visitor name here. I worded the first paragraph to really be indicative of our Visitors Day. I also added in a line that says, please register here. So a visitor could take this email and then register themselves for the meeting. Now that's something that we're looking to hopefully get in as an enhancement at some point in the future to the invitation itself. But that's what I did here in this particular copy. And then I had insert your name here. So then I forwarded this to my chapter so they could, hopefully they remember to replace those two big red words there, and then they could send that out as a visitor invitation specific to this Visitors Day. So Ronnie, I do like your solution, and it's, again, something that you can use on multiple levels as well. All right, that was the last question or comment. Do we have any additional questions, comments whatsoever? Again, I am happy to answer any questions you have. Ronnie says, thanks as usual. Great job. And thank you very much for being here. I thank you for being on, I think you were here for just about the entire series, Ronnie, so I do appreciate that. All right, if there's no additional questions, I would just like to say that, again, a good referral for me. Check out your regional calendars. Oh, thank you from the UK, from David Halls. Thank you very much, David, for being here. I know it's about 8:30 at night there, if I'm not mistaken. So thanks for staying up late and honing your BNI skills. All right, so again, our next webinar is going to be tomorrow, again at this same time, 3 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock UK time. We're going to be talking about the online renewal process, and the one after that is going to be this Thursday, again at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We're going to be talking about chapter web pages. Thank you guys again so much for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you in a future webinar. Happy connecting, everyone.